Demon Slayer wants to be a realistic showcase of what Japan during that time would be like with demons. The author even goes out of her way to tell the audience the elements they see on screen are nothing more than the representation of normal humans operating at peak performance. Okay. However, there are so many times in Demon Slayer where instead of either going for a realistic or dark atmosphere or committing to the surrealism of manga in the past, it attempts to do this weird middle ground where things just happen and you're supposed to just pretend it's internally consistent. We have Tanjiro smelling emotions, Zenitsu hearing concepts. How realistic is a world that has regular humans with abnormally heightened senses supposed to be? How realistic can you be when you have characters that can stop their own bleeding via muscles or the shifting of internal organs? Or how poison can be stopped by...
Is this nigga serious?
How is this the real world with talking animals? I know these are nitpicks, but my god, does it happen so often that I'm just like, what are the rules of this universe? Is this an older version of Japan with urban legends coming to life? Or is this SpongeBob? In other stories, these weirder aspects would be explained through magic, sorcery, or quirks, but in Demon Slayer, that's just how the world is. It's satisfied in its own nonsense, a type of nonsense that actually aids the characters in progressing the plot, because otherwise, most of them would be dead. I just don't think Demon Slayer does enough to justify its more sillier writing choices. This is a story where death has meaning, where life has even more meaning, a story about religion, faith, family, very human concepts in a world that behaves like a cartoon. The series is dependent on your patience. For example, when a villain is a nonsense spouting egotist who thinks they're the best and everyone else is a weakling, the series sets up, marginally well, that this side of them isn't their true essence, and their real and tragic humanity is yet to be seen. I couldn't care less about the structure, to be honest. Don't get me wrong, just because you follow the structure doesn't mean your story is automatically bad. However, meticulous build-up, intricate foreshadowing, heartwarming revelations, this is what makes a good story to me. The sense that a character's multi-dimensions are present from the start, and not just something about a character that's revealed way after we already went through a bunch of boring fights with them. I mean, don't get me wrong, you need fights like the Bongo Demon, the Rui fights, the Swordsmith Village as a whole, to set up a pattern of recognition for the antagonist and to set up way better arcs down the line. But isn't it crazy how 2/3 of this entire story is an appetizer? I promise you guys, that's not normal. During the Mugen Train arc, we see Tanjiro fall asleep and dream. Dream of his family, dream of a time he doesn't have to worry about the status quo changing. Dream of a time, maybe in his heart, he regrets not cherishing as much as he should have. It's as if Tanjiro hadn't had time to grieve, which might be the point, but it's more than that. Tanjiro's longing for his family is the thing holding this story together. For the most part, he's kind of the typical nice protagonist we've seen a bunch of times in this magazine, always empathetic and always in pain with the villains. He's a family man, a kind coal seller who just wants the simple and quiet life with the people he loves, a life that was snatched away from him in the beginning of the series. The only thing he really has is Nezuko, and he'll do anything to preserve that bond. And we see this in Mugen Train. Tanjiro has what he wants, but if he's to save what he has to wake up. He has to face the music. But this isn't something we grow to learn about him. This is something we kind of assume about him until this arc makes it more explicit. And I can't help but wonder how my investment would be affected if the story just started with this level of care and characterization. No matter how relatable the themes of family in the story are, this is a story, and as such, the author still has the responsibility of making you understand why these relationships are the way they are, and why you should care. But if the author doesn't, then these emotional breakthroughs just look like ass pulls. We know nothing about Tanjiro's true connection with his family other than he had one, and now it's the foundation for multiple power-ups and Nezuko conquering the sun. Never mind the fact that the how works is completely left unexplained. It's familiar, right? Skipping the midpoint for characters to focus on their endings. Demon Slayer tries to compensate for this by giving everyone sad backstories. Everyone has their own history, their own motivations, their own pain, but tear-jerking should not be a substitute for character writing. I love the fact that we get to know these characters on an emotional level, but the cast is so big, the flashbacks are so frequent, everyone's personalities are so one note that it all sort of just bleeds together after a while. So much so that when it comes time time for an actual good character to explain what makes them tick, we're already burnt out because we just spent an hour and a half on Zenitsu. And while the final act is good, it would have been way better if the world building or the characters were at least more fun to establish at first. But whether it be the cookie cutter archetypes everyone falls into, or the more than minimal Japanese setting, Demon Slayer barely has anything of note to get invested into. You're a manga with such little time to spend in this world already. Instead of giving us the 50th sad backstory, give us some proper lore, some proper context for the world at large, the world these characters used to live in, how exactly it's changed. If you want a world that's off the wall and zany, commit to that. Just make this world and these characters feel alive. Don't just allude to the fact that they are. Gun to your head, give me 5 facts about Snake Man. I deadass forgot his name, and I'm not even gonna look it up to feign journalistic integrity. Like, it's either an ensemble cast that pads the story out, or a centralized cast that get no time in the spotlight because they're in the story attempting to be plot driven. Maybe this genre is cooked. In the words of the First Flame user, no matter how skilled you are, no matter how good you are at your craft, no matter your character, at the end of the day, you will die. This story is a struggle between those who accept this and live their best life, and those who refuse this truth because of regret and pain. I think that the economy shown of those who have grasp of their own mortality, a hold on their own relationships, and an accurate perspective on goodness, a goodness that can be extended to others, and those who don't, is shown really well, and I think that's represented in Tanjiro. The main character being this central beacon of hope in one of these series isn't anything new, but I like how his gentle demeanor and those who have the same demeanor are such a necessity in this cold, snow-ridden world. Not wanting to be the best Demon Slayer or the best swordsmith, but just wanting a peaceful life for his loved ones, a quiet life where no one will have to worry about anything. Ubuyashiki, Tanjiro, Rengoku, their kindness literally changes the trajectory of so many characters. Demon Slayer has such a sensitivity and sentimentality to it that even in its most boring moments, I kind of have to admire the sweetness of it all. I mean, you see this in the ending. There are so many character deaths in Demon Slayer's final act, but none of them feel tragic. It's sort of the right way for an author to love their own story, while not keeping the corrupt world at large intact or the story's stakes being held hostage. I don't know how to talk about Demon Slayer. Not because it's this misunderstood masterpiece, not because I have such complex feelings towards it, I'm just not its biggest fan. But I also don't like how people talk about it. When My Hero Academia was terrible, I still felt a responsibility to correct people on the reasons why, because that series at the time just meant that much to me. I try my hardest to make sure people aren't lumping me in with detractors who read Jujutsu Kaisen through leaks or something. And I cared enough to reword my criticisms towards Chainsaw Man to make it clear that, yeah, I liked part 1. But from the first episode, Demon Slayer to me was just sort of a show I had to watch. It was probably one of the first shows that really got me into anime, and despite that, I never really held it in high regard. I noticed its popularity, I noticed its impact, and I noticed its quality. So despite me not caring about the story or the characters, I just kept watching because, I mean, what else do I have going on? Is that worse than just being bad? Like, being so awful you make it your life's purpose to shut down any positive notions towards it? So awful you make an event out of how bad it could possibly get? So terrible it changes the very nature of how you approach stories and fandoms at large? Is being a show that's essentially just another checkmark on a bucket list any better than those feelings? But that's the thing. Demon Slayer isn't terrible to me, it's just needlessly unimpressive. I see people cherish it as one of the best and concise battle shonen, especially because of its re-release volume ending, and I go, yeah, but it being the only good one is only by default. I see people have profile pictures of supporting cast members, characters I can't even properly name or tell you 3 things about. I see people celebrate its symbolism, not in the Kubology way, but just in a way that explains why Japan has it in such high regard. But then I think about how the symbolism or setting doesn't inform anything about the characters that would get me properly invested. I see defenses towards misconceptions, like its power system or antagonist motivations, and I just shrug because the story isn't good enough to me to warrant this strong of a defense force. Not to mention, its very existence possibly ruined the anime going experience for the rest of eternity. It's as if KNY is confused, wanting to be this untouchable story that murders all of its peers with undying passion, crazy fantastical elements, skill, while consistently kneecapping its desire to be larger than life by grounding itself with oversensitivity, which is even more bizarre because as bad as its peers can be sometimes, at the bare minimum they're at least able to marry these two sides tonally and sorry, the wrong footage. And yet, people on the opposite side of the spectrum annoy me as well. That's odd. Usually when I feel this numb to a manga, any slander, even if founded on poor interpretations, give me joy. But because of Demon Slayer's mediocrity, you now have other shonen fanbases comfortable dismissing all of its qualities. Truly awful battle shonen are touted as better on every front, despite them being eerily similar to Demon Slayer.
Corporate needs you to find the differences between this picture and this picture. They're the same picture.
Except Demon Slayer is shorter, less dense and convoluted, has better character writing for the antagonist, and isn't the imagination of a perverse man who thinks Orihime's boobs are still funny in the final arc.
Tanjiro, it's you! It really is you!
Watch out! Please be careful! Your breasts are this close to spilling out!
I mean, sure, it's way less cool and probably has way less quote-unquote memorable moments, but while KNY never reaches the peaks of Bleach, while KNY I'm sorry, Bleach and peaks in the same sentence. But while KNY could never attain the highs of Bleach or the identity of a Jujutsu Kaisen, it is undoubtedly way more cohesive, consistent, and focused on the things it wants to say, even if, for me, the way it goes about saying those things is very uninteresting.
Why would you do that? Why would you do that?
It's funny, because Demon Slayer is yet another criticism of battle shonen, although you can't really tell that from its cutesy demeanor. Its protagonists actually accomplish their goal, unlike others whose societal goals are undone by the end of the story or its sequel. It tries its damnedest to be heartfelt and delicate, when a lot of shonen make their characters out to be mere weapons or plot devices. It's intentionally a lot shorter, and has no sign of being given some sort of continuation where Tanjiro's ancestors have to fight aliens. And it does all of that while keeping its stakes intact, with actual character deaths and a fast-paced final act that provides tension and a real sense of danger that was masterfully set up throughout the entire story. So maybe being boring is better than being bad? Though my opinion on that might change after this video, as this has been a debate critics have had for hundreds of years. Instead, perhaps utterly untitillating isn't better than being a bad story, but just better than being a dogshit one with little redeemable qualities, bad politics, and contradictory thematic sentiments. Or rather, at the very least, one is better animated.